My masterpiece is Beetlejuice from 1988, the first Beetlejuice. So, the plot summary of this one: the spirits of a deceased couple are harassed by an unbearable family that has moved into their home and hire a malicious spirit to drive them out. Tim Burton directed, starring Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, and Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, and Winona Ryder. So I'll talk first about why this to me is his masterwork, and then love to hear your thoughts on the movie, which sounds like you just watched it. So I'm definitely curious to hear what you think about that, and then we'll kind of get more into the movie. So, this to me is something where not only is it my favorite movie of his, and I've probably seen this, I think maybe the most times, perhaps Batman, perhaps Pee-wee, but definitely this is a movie that was in constant rotation for me for my entire life, to be honest. I watch this, at least once a year. I feel like this is a movie that is so different and unique. I don't feel like another director could have brought something as weird as this premise to the screen in a way that to be this successful. I feel like this movie is, you can simplify it down into one line like the plot summary did. It is kind of high concept, but at the same time it's not a movie that I feel like is referencing anything else. It's coming out of completely nowhere. It feels very creative. The Michael Keaton performance, just the character of Beetlejuice, is so out there. I think you would have to have a director that is also kind of out there and full of creativity and artistry like Tim Burton is to even pull the tone of what this movie is off. It's so odd and so weird and so unique. To me, that perfectly exemplifies Tim Burton. And I, again, like I said, I don't think this movie could have been successful at all without anyone else behind the scenes. And yes, there's all of his classic themes in here about, the outsiders, which in a way are kind of the couple in the movie, like the normal people, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin as now they're ghosts. They're sort of the outsiders in this world of weirdos, of yuppies, and then the afterlife. And obviously Beetlejuice himself is a total weird psychopath. So I think that was a kind of an interesting twist. You're bringing the squares, quote unquote,
Mhm.
are now the outsiders, which usually in these Tim Burton movies, the squares are not the ones that are giving the outsiders the problems. So I think that's just an interesting twist on his aesthetic. So yeah, I think for me, and also the rest of the production design's amazing, costumes are great, iconic score. I think this is second best Danny Elfman score after the Batman movie that we just talked about. So yeah, this had to be my masterpiece for Tim Burton. And yeah, we'll get more into the movie, but yeah, what were your thoughts of finally seeing this for the first time after it's sort of
Yeah.
being in the culture for so long, and just how much of it you already kind of felt like you had seen before because they were just absorbed through the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think Beetlejuice himself, the dinner scene, all of that I had known of, but had never watched the movie, like I said. But the moment I started watching it, within 10 minutes, I was like, oh, I understand why this is Alex's masterpiece. Because it sort of captures him as in Tim Burton entirely. I would use all the words that you use, and I would just add one more, which is that, I mean, funny, of course, we said that before, but also there's something very adorable about this movie.
Mm,
That's the thing, that this should not feel adorable, but it does, because it's this kind of almost like a dollhouse box with creepy dolls inside it. And you marvel at the artistry and the craft of the dolls, but they're weird and creepy. But because there is a dollhouse, so there's something adorable and magical about it. And I think there's such a fine, delicate dance that he does, from the opening shots of just showing this town, this couple that feels quote unquote normal, but something is about to happen because they're so overly excited about their vacation and just
right.
having a staycation, I should say. And there's something odd about that it just feels so idyllic that it's almost off in a way.
Hmm.
But then that's just the beginning. It just gets more and more interesting and clever, and it never feels like how some of quirky movies can sort of feel like they're eating their own tail, or
Yeah.
it's become like a hat on a hat on a hat. Like, it doesn't feel like that. It feels effortless, and it actually feels closest to me to the metaphor of Alice in Wonderland. Like, you're sort of falling down the rabbit hole and things are just sort of happening to you in the most organic way, which is ironic because Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland is barely
Terrible.
watchable. If
Yes, it's his worst film, actually.
it's,
Yeah. I think it's his
yeah.
worst film. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, and everybody's great. The score is amazing. Everybody is committed. I didn't actually remember or know that Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are part of it, because I just think of Winona Ryder, Michael Keaton, and the Deeds family, as I guess. So it was kind of fun to watch them and how sweet they are and odd they are in this whole thing. So yeah, this was definitely going to be on my repeat watching list. I think it just is such a fun time.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm glad you liked it and that it, I guess, lived up to your expectations or just what you it deserved its place in the culture. It
Yeah.
sounds like in terms of to what you thought about it. Yeah, I think the thing that is overlooked a lot in this movie is the fact that it is basically Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are the main characters in the film.
Yeah.
Like it's their storyline of their kind of acceptance of their fate and their learning to live with the Dietzes, essentially. It's about
Hmm.
them kind of coming together, those two families. And Beetlejuice is just this X factor that he's actually kind of the bad guy in a way, sort of in the
Right.
movie. He's trying to cause trouble with everyone involved, which makes him fun and funny. But it really is about Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, who are both so good in this movie and just so funny. Again, I
Yeah.
just, especially comparing it to the recent movie, which I thought was lacking a lot of the humor. I mean, this movie, every character has so many different gags. Like, there isn't a straight man in this movie, really.
No.
Everyone is playing for laughs. I just the jokes. I could just sit here for 20 minutes just quoting this entire movie, but people can watch the movie. I'll save them my Beetlejuice impression. But can't talk more good things about how perfect of a movie this is. And this is something too, I think, a very few movies are perfect in the sense of I don't think there's anything that needs to be improved when it comes to the production design is so incredibly the afterlife, the way that they interpret the
Hmm.
afterlife too as a bureaucracy. Like, what could be scarier than that? Like, you think hell would be scary? Like, imagine waiting in line for caseworkers and social work and fill out this form. I thought that was a really fun, unique
It's
take
so clever.
on like what you could do with being dead. Like
Yeah.
turning into that, I thought is so
Yeah.
cool. Still to this day, I think it's funny.
And it feels very fresh. Like, I of course I hadn't seen it before, but like all the characters you meet there, they all look fresh, versus now, and even in the new movie, like the guy with the small head, like you see so many of them, and I was like, okay, this doesn't feel as interesting and fresh as it did in the first one, because and it doesn't feel self-serious, it feels very organic in the first one. Like, oh yeah, oh yeah, you're here,
It does feel it's fresh even now. Like, I've seen the movie
Yeah.
so many different times, but it does still feel something unique. But it feels uniquely Tim Burton too. Like,
Right.
not only the design aesthetic, but of course he would think of something about the afterlife for him would still be this like bureaucracy basically, because I'm sure that's
Mhm.
something too as an artist like he probably never wanted to deal with. You
Right.
don't want to have to deal with approvals and forms and things like he just wants to go off and make his art. So this is
Right.
probably the scariest thing for him that is cool. And again, like you said, the dinner scene being so iconic too, I think
Oh.
this is just another element of like kitsch being brought into Tim Burton's aesthetic, using these calypso songs, which people know the Deo song, but
Right.
they know it as sort of as a like a novelty song, kind of, I guess is a way to
Right.
describe it. And him sort of working that into this movie and making the song even more iconic now than it originally was. I think it's just again cool and just very much part of his aesthetic. Just so great. Like, it's
I'm just laughing thinking about it. Like, it's just so good. Yeah.
so good. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.